Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome along to the Friday night hangout. I think it's Friday. Yeah. Joined here with Nick this evening, and we're going to be discussing the reflection of the Swansea result, as well as looking ahead to the United game in a couple of weeks' time. And really, what needs to change at Arsenal in the coming months, really, before we go into that transfer window. So, Nick, great to have you on, mate. Thanks for coming on. Just tell
Thanks,
them a
mate.
bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm an Arsenal season ticket holder and have been for about 7 years now. And yeah, I have my own YouTube channel, which I don't really discuss football on. But yeah,
Yeah. So obviously the aftermath of that Swansea result, there's a lot of talk for Wenger's head, and that's kind of the natural reaction you'd expect because that result was so horrific. I don't think a lot of people expected that. I think, actually, I think the sad thing is a lot of people weren't expecting us to go into that game and get a win. I certainly wasn't expecting. I know I previewed that we'd win the game 2-1, but honestly, I would have taken a 1-1 draw at Swansea because realistically, now we're 12 points behind Chelsea. I mean, do you honestly think still a shot at us winning the title this season?
no, I think that went a long time ago. It's a shame because if you compare us to other teams other than Chelsea, we're actually not as inconsistent as I think people believe us to be. I think every team's inconsistent, and if Chelsea were last year's Chelsea or the year previous to that, we maybe would still have a shot. But I think because Chelsea are so strong, I think it's really theirs to lose now, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think what frustrates me more than anything about it really this season is that the fact that City don't look good, United don't look good, Liverpool don't look good, Everton, Spurs don't look good, and admittedly, I can say we don't look good, but then again, we are two players short of having a fully complete squad of centre back, and you could even argue we're only one player short. If Koscielny had stayed fit, we'd only need a defensive midfielder, and even then, we'd have a really complete team, similarly to Chelsea's, where you've got so much depth in every position. But the fact that we're not in that scenario is painful to see because next season you can anticipate that Liverpool will inevitably strengthen, City with their unlimited resources will strengthen, Chelsea with all the teams around us will strengthen, and even next season it's going to be even more competitive. And I think another thing that is really hard to watch is that teams like even Swansea, West Ham, the thing that's really attractive about them is they're playing good quality football. I think we're playing stale football in a sense, and I mean, how do you think we should be reacting from that defeat against Swansea? Because obviously we've got that huge game against United, and more importantly, what I wanted to ask you was, what do you think went wrong in that Swansea game?
Yeah, like, I think it's what's happened all season. Really, the team hasn't got going. We've only had one, maybe two outstanding performers in the team. I'd say Sanchez, obviously, has been performing well, and he didn't perform as well as we were used to against Swansea, which every player has an average game. And even then, he still got a goal, so we can't complain about that. But I feel the only other player really who's really made, I don't know, I'd say performed well consistently this season is Szczesny. I feel he's done a very good job, but the rest of the team, I think in midfield we lack a leader, and I think that shows against Swansea. Really, why the midfield was so high up to be counter-attacked against is a bit of a mystery, and I think that's what really went wrong in the game. Is that in midfield we didn't really keep the ball too well. We allowed Swansea to play football, and we allowed them back into the game. We haven't really played well going forward yet this season, and that's another reason why.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arteta's. I'm not his biggest fan by any means. I mean, love or hate the guy, a lot of people are against Arteta at the moment due to his age, and I don't think we should be looking to blame the guy specifically because at the end of the day, it's Wenger's own negligence for not bringing in a strong defensive central midfielder um, over the summer break. But I think Arteta, like I said, whether you love or hate the guy, he is a natural leader in that midfield for us, and I think that showed so evidently in the Anderlecht game because the minute he went off, everything fell to pieces, and he dictates the game incredibly well. I actually think Arteta, he's played all right this season, but I think the main problem is that he is getting old. There's no getting away from that fact. Injuries are catching up with him, and he's certainly not getting any better. And we don't have a sufficient replacement in Flamini. I don't rate Flamini whatsoever, and I don't think he should be anywhere near that starting lineup. But the more concerning thing for me at the moment is the counterpart to Flamini or Arteta in Aaron Ramsey, who just I don't know what's happened to him this season. He looks an absolute shadow of his former self. I mean, is there anything that you may suspect maybe up with Aaron Ramsey this season?
I think it's just once again a lack of confidence. Last season he had so much confidence that I remember in the FA Cup final he was taking shots which really I thought you really shouldn't be taking them to get us back into the game. I had a few situations last season where you could start to see he was getting a bit too overconfident. I think coming into the season, there's no real reason why he isn't at the standard he was last season, because he didn't have to play in the World Cup. He didn't really have that situation to go on. So I just only can assume it's down to a lack of confidence. It definitely isn't down to fitness, but I think also it's very difficult for him to be played out of position. He's a player who likes to play alongside a holding midfielder and make runs into the box late. He isn't someone who can dribble past players, and being played sort of as an advanced midfielder, I really don't think that's his position. When Wenger's played him on the wing before, that isn't his position, and I think he's a specialist in that sort of holding role, which at the moment he hasn't been played in. And I think the mixture of all them consequences have showed this season so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you say he's got a lack of confidence this season, but in a way, I think he's been a bit naive, and I still think he's got a lot of confidence. He's just not executing it in the right way. His exhibition on the pitch is really poor. You know, how many times does he do these little flicks in games that just nothing comes on whatsoever? We lose the ball when a team counter-attacks, and it costs us. And he looks very arrogant at times as well, which I don't like about him. I think you could probably see that when he started to slick his hair back and all that. But I mean, I just think he really needs to simplify his game, start playing the football that he was last season.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
I don't like the fact that he's always trying to get onto the scoreboard. I mean, even in the game against Swansea where Sanchez scored the goal, right behind him, Aaron Ramsey was standing there screaming for the ball. And he's got to stop focusing on scoring. He's a midfielder. I don't think, I mean, okay, he scored a load of goals last season, but I don't think people honestly were expecting or anticipating any kind of midfielder to get the goal tally that he did last season. And it really annoys me that he was the player that you could consistently count on having a good performance in any game we played last season. But now it's not that at all. But getting away from the fact of Aaron Ramsey, we've got a massive, massive game against United, which I'm not overly confident going in, considering how things have gone. And I suppose the international break at the moment is a bit of welcome relief. But going into that game, I'm really concerned about how our defence is going to line up. I mean, what are your thoughts going into that game?
Yeah, it's worrying not having Koscielny in such a big game. I feel Mertesacker is a different player when he's playing alongside Koscielny. It would be very worrying to play Monreal at centre back, but it would be very worrying to play Callum Chambers at centre back too, just down to the inexperience. So yeah, it's very worrying. It doesn't look like Koscielny is going to be back for that game. I think the only positive we can really look at is that Man United aren't very good defensively at the moment, and we can damage them when we do play well. I believe we played quite well against Man City earlier on in the season. Definitely in the first 20 minutes we were unstoppable, it looked like, although we didn't get a goal. But when we can play, and in big games, if we can deliver the performance, I believe we could get the 3 points, as Man United are vulnerable. But yeah, as you say, defensively is worrying, and I don't think there's a quick solution at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, going into that game, I would probably be satisfied with a point out of it, but I'd really like us to go out there and make a statement and get the win over United, because we haven't done that in so long, and they're always going to be our bogey team in a sense. But you know, I am very concerned about the defence. And what worries me a lot going into this game is that I don't think we could even try and predict the starting lineup that United are going to have, because the amount of different 11s they've had this season. I mean, is Falcao going to start? There's rumours that he's out. There's rumours that he's coming back for the game. Where's Di Maria going to play? Is he going to be utilised on the wing, or is he going to play through the middle, or is he going to play in a more deeper lying midfield role? I mean, I don't think we'll have too much of a problem keeping Van Persie and Wayne Rooney at bay as such, because they're not by no means the players they have been in past seasons. But then again, I'm not underestimating them, because Van Persie will obviously be fired up for this game, and Wayne Rooney on his day is a world-class player, but he's certainly not the player he was a couple of years ago. So I think in a sense we can handle them, but it depends what kind of United turns up. And I'm especially worried about the prospect of Di Maria. I mean, players like Januzaj, those kind of players don't concern me at all, because I don't think they're of a United quality. I know they're young, etc. That always to be taken into account, but they don't really pose a threat in my opinion. But then again, against Arsenal, pretty much every one of them you can guarantee will step up to their A game. I mean, playing Monreal as centre back alongside Mertesacker certainly hasn't worked at all for us. It just hasn't worked at all, quite frankly. And I don't really see why Wenger's not using the obvious back four that I think is screaming out to every Arsenal fan alike, and using Bellerin, Chambers, Mertesacker and Gibbs. And I think it really frustrates me that Bellerin isn't getting a chance in the team. I mean, he's played against Hull, he's had a couple of minutes against Burnley, but apart from that, he hasn't really integrated into the team as such. And I think whenever he's played for us, he's been of sheer class. And what really is your take on Bellerin? I mean, do you think we should persist with Mertesacker and Chambers as the partnership, or do you think we should introduce Bellerin to the side and put Chambers into a more centre-back role?
I think between Monreal and Chambers, I would like to give Chambers a chance. I'm not sure if at Old Trafford, it isn't at Old Trafford, is it? It's at the Emirates. But I still don't think against Man United is the game to put him into that position. But I think what I've seen of Chambers, I prefer him over Monreal. And as for Bellerin, what I've seen of him, he's good going forward. He gets back. He puts a lot of effort in. But really, I don't think we've seen enough of him to say for definite he should be our right back, our standing right back for the moment. It's just a very difficult judgment to make at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose it's really difficult with Wenger trying to make that call, because given Bellerin's got a lack of experience, if he was to make one mistake in the game which could cost us, you'd get a lot of people criticising Wenger for that. So obviously it's a really hard decision. But then again, I think, if I'm being honest, I think Callum Chambers' best performances this season have come at a centre-back role. I don't think he's got enough pace really to play as a right back, and he's got the stature of a natural centre-back. He's only 19. He's going to get bigger as well, and I certainly would think he'd be a lot more better in the centre of defence. But I think certainly Laurent Koscielny is the one that we quite obviously miss. I would hope people would understand how underappreciated and underrated he is at Arsenal. I know most Arsenal fans rate him, but any neutral fan could see that our defence collapses when he's not a part of it. So I'm really hoping he comes back into the frame of things soon. But looking on from the United game, obviously a lot of stick has come Wenger's way, and I'm not really too sure where I stand on the topic really, because I think the guy's got both positives and negatives, and I certainly think he's very negligent at times. But I think I don't like the idea of people calling for his head at this point in the season. I don't see how that's going to benefit us in any way. I mean, what's your take on Arsene Wenger at the moment?
Yeah, it's a weird one, because I think every Arsenal fan has some connection to Wenger. Like for me, and I assume you, ever since you can remember, he's been our manager. So what he's done for the club in the first 7 years, he took us. He won 2 doubles. He took us to the Champions League final, the unbeaten season, of course. He done an incredible job, and over these past 7 years, he's rebuilt the squad. I think he's done a terrific job with virtually no money at all. now he's got money. I think the biggest problem at the moment is, for me, is that he bought Mesut Ozil, and I still can't really tell you a game where Mesut Ozil has been outstanding. I do believe he is a good player. I do see glimpses of it, but I can't quite understand how we turned down Fabregas and stuck with Mesut Ozil, or why we couldn't have both. And with with things like the Swansea game and the Anderlecht game, when we really should have just defended our lead, and the team lost the whole, like they just stood off at Anderlecht for half an hour, and Anderlecht got 3 goals. So for me, it was quite a like, who do you blame? Do you blame Wenger or do you blame the players? I think it's unfair to maybe blame the players because the manager's in charge of the squad, but I don't know who to blame. People have blamed the board before for buying players or selling players. I don't think it's fair to criticise Wenger for the sale of, say, Van Persie, or the sale of Nursery or Fabregas before, which a lot of people were criticising him for. But he obviously isn't as good as he used to be, because we would be winning games against Swansea when we're 1-0 up. We used to be able to defend very well. But I still do believe that he's the right man to take us forward for the time being. I don't see another option. There's Klopp, who's doing really bad in Germany at the moment with Dortmund. I believe they're in the relegation zone. I don't really see anyone else who I would really want to come in and replace him at the moment, so I think he's the only option we have.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've grown up with Arsene Wenger. I'm 18 years old, and he's been in charge of the club for 18 years, since August in 1996. So, I mean, I wouldn't really know an Arsenal without him, and I guess that's where a more mature viewpoint would come into it, and certainly have a better knowledge of Arsenal without him. But all I can say about Arsenal at the moment is that they play. I think what we've been most renowned for is the style of football we play, and it's been so good over recent years, and that's what's concerning me this season, the fact that the football hasn't been of a great quality. I also thought it was really interesting what you said about Ozil, because, I mean, at Real Madrid, they have a very specific lineup of players, and I think Ozil always knew where he'd be in that team. He always knew he'd be in the number 10 role, with Ronaldo and Di Maria and Benzema in front of him. So that was fine for him, and he had great runners in front of him in those players. And at Arsenal, I mean, I think he started his campaign well because he had the players around him to really make an impact. He had Walcott, Ramsey, etc., and even Giroud to an extent. And now he's got Welbeck in front of him as well, who arguably is a much better runner. I think the big problem with Ozil is that we're always changing formation, we're always changing lineups. We've never got a specific lineup of players that we know are going to go into a game, and it doesn't. And the reason that is mainly because of the injuries that we've got. I mean, Walcott and Ozil have played 5 games together, which speaks absolute volumes. They should, if those two were playing together, and then Ozil had players like Chamberlain, Walcott, even Gnabry, who's coming back now, Welbeck in front of him, Alexis Sanchez, then he'd be sport for choice. And I certainly think that we'd see a better Mesut Ozil. We were seeing it before he got injured. I mean, the performances he had against Villa, against Galatasaray, he looked superb in those games.
Mm.
I think he always gives his best for the team. I know a lot of people criticise him for being lazy, but at the moment this Arsenal team is very, very fragile. It's very inconsistent, and we need to build on that and get some momentum going and keep a starting 11 players fit. I mean, Chelsea, every game they had their strongest 11 playing. I don't think we've done that this season. I don't think we've done that at all. So that's my main concern. And also, you just brushed on it. If we were to replace him, I don't really know who would bring in. I mean, you said Klopp. I know practically everyone calls for Klopp straight away, and that frustrates me as well, because what can Klopp bring to this Arsenal side that Wenger already hasn't? I mean, look how badly he's doing with Dortmund in the Bundesliga. You could argue, yeah, he'll bring a fresh approach to our style of play. He plays similar football with Dortmund in that attractive football sense. But then again, you could be taking a massive risk, because if he was to get a 6th or something in the league, the meltdown would be absolutely catastrophic. So, yeah, who would you personally like to see come in if Wenger was to go, say, tomorrow?
See, there's been a lot of talk recently that they're more looking at sort of more unknown names to replace Wenger, like assistant managers at other big European clubs. Personally, if I had to choose now, if Wenger was to walk out the door today, I would take a gamble on Klopp because I believe the style of football Dortmund play would work very well in the Premier League. There's a lot of pressure on the ball. I believe just the way that they play would work in the Premier League, and I think he's proved before that he can develop players and also work on with a club with a limited budget. Because Dortmund did have financial problems when he came there, and what he's been able to do is absolutely incredible. Other managers, I'm not really sure, because I think even if you could choose any manager in the world, I don't think a manager say that in a just like, obviously I wouldn't want him to be the manager of Arsenal, but Jose Mourinho, I don't think he'd be able to do the job because you don't really have the financial support that you do at other big clubs. Arsenal can't compete, unfortunately, because we don't have a owner who's going to just pump money into the club, and it's a difficult decision. Yeah, I can't really mention many names. Klopp's the only person that's ever really I've been impressed by. But this season, he isn't really sort of making a good example of himself. But I'm not sure if that's just Dortmund without Lewandowski, who obviously was a big part of their team. So it's a very difficult decision, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's too highly respected by the board to get sacked. Which fair enough. He's done so much for the club. He's kind of saved the board in a sense by getting Arsenal through that really rough patch. By consistently getting top four season after season after season after season. I couldn't really. I don't think I could personally name who I'd like to see come in. I mean, the first name that springs to mind in my head is Simeone, but I mean, I don't think I don't think that'll happen in my lifetime anyway. But I think it's a huge call. I think that's why it's not going to be done because with Wenger, we could have a garbage season, but we'll get top four. You can guarantee that we'll get top four, especially whilst the teams around us are playing so badly. I mean, I think there's more pressure on people like Louis van Gaal, really, because I mean, look at the money he spent. He has to get top four. If they don't get top four, it's going to be an absolute nightmare at United. I mean, what do they do then? Do they sack Van Gaal? Do they bring someone new in? Because they can't throw more money at it because that's just what they've kind of already done.
Yeah.
And I think relating back to the Wenger thing, I think he does have his issues. Stubbornness is the major one and going to be a bit controversial, but I do think he can learn off Louis van Gaal in a sense that he needs to put a lot more faith in the youth team. I know Arsenal are again renowned for doing that, but I think we need to promote someone from the youth side. I mean, we've got Semi Ajay in there who I haven't seen much of, but he does look like an exciting prospect. He's featured on the bench for us a couple of times this season. And we've also got Isaac Hayden, who I was only made aware is injured. But I think players like that, Hayden is certainly someone I really highly rate.
And also there's Crowley, who is doing very well, I believe, for the under-19s, who I think he's in a sort of Wilshere scenario where he's just been the outstanding performer for them. So maybe he deserves a shot.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've got one of the most exciting youth academies in the league. Again, Crowley is another player I'd love to see. I love the fact that we're getting all these English players into the side now. I mean, we've got, I think, again, the most Arsenal players in the England team. I haven't worded that right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's all good. I think Wenger is doing the right thing, and I think even if he was to leave, I do believe he'll see out his 3-year contract. I think that's a reality. But I think if he was to leave now, or if he did get sacked, then I think the club would be in a good way because we've got enough money to have another successful transfer window where we arguably only need to strengthen a few positions. That's really about it on the Wenger topic. And you
Yeah.
know, we'll wrap.
I'd just like to say that if you look at what he's done for the club, there's a lot of people who would like to see him go. But what he's done, he's come to the club. He's got us the state-of-the-art training facility. He's got us a state-of-the-art stadium now, and he's really built the club up for the future. I think if he was to leave the club now, I think the manager coming in would be incredibly grateful for the job that he's already done.
Yeah.
And I do feel that we as fans need to sort of repay him in a way for that with a bit of faith, because he hasn't done a bad job for us at all. Certain games the team will underperform, and I think we do overreact at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's especially noticeable on Arsenal fan TV when you get to play the fans coming out of the ground and they're all just saying Wenger out, Wenger out, which in the heat of the moment you can completely understand. But when you're cool and collective about it, then you know you do have to put into perspective what he's done outside of the performances on the pitch. And I think when the performances on the pitch do get to a point where they're not good enough, and he does inevitably have to leave at some point. The club's going to be in a great shape as it is. I mean, it's not like Ferguson leaving United with players like Tom Cleverley and Ashley Young and Anderson and Valencia, who are just bog standard players. I mean, we've got a good array of players. We just need to strengthen. We've got the finances to do that. Got a great stadium, got great training facilities, great youth prospects. So I think the club is going to be in a good way. I think it will be for decades to come. And I do honestly believe that that FA Cup victory will push us on to bigger and better things. Whether it happens this season, like I've already said, I think the title's gone. It's way beyond us this season because Chelsea are going to run away with it. I think the Premier League potentially could be a really boring season because Chelsea are just going to inevitably win it, which is kind of sad to see. But anyway, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there. If you've enjoyed the Hangout, then make sure to give it a like rating, and if we can get Nick back on here a bit, time's been great. A bit more in the future. It's been great having you on, mate. If you just want to promote yourself once more.
If you follow me on Twitter, I talk about Arsenal a lot there. That's NGW27, and my YouTube channel is Premier Links, which I plan to get up and running again soon. So if you like me, you can see me there.
Okay, great. Well, it's been fantastic having you on. Great to get a different point of view, and make sure to go check out Nick's channel. I'll put the description in the I'll put his link in the comments below. Getting all my words muddled up. But thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to be seeing you again soon.